Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Gayle Delaney. Dr. Gayle Delaney is the founding president of the International Association for the Study of Dreams and co-founder of Delaney and Flowers Dream Center and Diploma Program, teaching the dream interview method for making wiser choices in the real world. Gayle has appeared on Oprah 5 times and presents Dreamwork in the media in multiple languages. And Gayle, you live part-time in Italy as well. Is that right?
I do.
Yes.
I do. And I hope we can do that after COVID.
I hope so.
Part of my move to Florida from San Francisco was to be 6 hours closer to Italy.
Very nice. Well, welcome. It's great to have you here. And I have so many questions for you today. And one big question is that, I noticed that you rarely use spiritual traditions in your dream work, even though you describe them extensively in your book, All About Dreams. So why is that?
Well, I honor many traditions, but what I have done is I've wanted to pull dreaming away from the experts, the God experts, the psychological experts, the gurus who intrude all over the place on a person's dream. And so I wrote in extensive exhaustion. 3/5 of that was taken out of my book because it was just too long. The different traditions are thrilling, and many of them don't value dreams enough. They think they're maybe undisciplined thinking in the night or something like that. I feel that I want people to interpret their dream, quadream first. Just work with your own dream. Don't look at what Freud said, what Jung said, what somebody else said about your dream. You have your own dream images, and dreams are very specific to a time and a place in your personal life. Only you know all that. So I want to develop a system that asks questions that were focused entirely on what you knew before you went to sleep at night. And then feed back those descriptions of the images and the feelings and the actions and say, does this remind you of anything in your life? And that's where you get the interpretation that is good and clean, and it's about the dreamer, and it's very specific. After that, if you want to lay on layers of insight that you might have or you might read about from another tradition, fine, but don't use them as hand-me-down interpretations or directional signals to your dreamer. Go this way, go that way. Let the dreamer go where she wants. And had we done that, we wouldn't have such a sexist dream interpretation tradition to get free of.
Yeah, I see. And I know you also have been leading dream groups for decades, in addition to all the writing you do. And you have this dream interview method that you developed in 1971. And could you describe that to us?
Yes. I was in college senior year and had a student-initiated dream course. And I was going off to Zurich for a year. I was going to become a Jungian. I'd already done a Jungian analysis for, 2 years. And some guy said to me, well, Gail, then interpret this dream for me after we talked about it. And I said, well, I couldn't do that. Jung says I'll have to be 88 or more, which I'm getting close to now. But back then I was 22. And I'd have to know astrology, philosophy, psychology. I mean, on and on and on. And he said, no, I insist. Come on. And so I said, all right, pretend I come from another planet. You had a dream about Richard Nixon. This was 1971, Vietnam War. And I said, just pretend I've never heard of this guy before. What is he like? Who is Richard Nixon? What is he like? Just give me a concrete description of him. And now what was he doing in your dream? And when he said those things, we knew exactly. So did he. He knew who Richard Nixon was. It was his father, whom he was being very much like in a particular time in his life. And I thought, well, that's it. Say the interviewer. You can interview yourself on a dream, or you ask someone else to play the role. And it's much easier to have someone else do it when you're a beginner. And I have a whole sheet of interviewer cue card questions on my site that you can print out. And these are the questions for every person, animal, feeling, action in your dream, any setting. And you say to somebody, pretend I come from another planet. I don't want anybody else's ideas. And if you don't know very well, just give me your opinion. That's just fine. And that way, dreamers, you would be amazed what they tell you. Plus, I never get bored with interpreting. Sigmund Freud got very bored using free association. One, it wasn't very free because he sculpted the dreamer's directions. But he said, I just drop that and I just interpret now because I know what it's about. And we all know what he always knew it was always about. And just to catch up on that, in 1990s, almost 90 years after Freud wrote the book, I went to a Freudian dream group at UC San Francisco. And this guy interpreted every older male as my father, or anybody's father in the dream. Every older woman is the mother. And talk about losing specificity. Why did my friend in college dream of Richard Nixon and not Jimmy Carter, not any other president of America? Why not of any other older man? It was very specifically Richard Nixon. And I wanted to know about that. And he gave it to me, lickety split. Would you like me to describe the basic method of the dream interview? Would this be the time to do that?
Yeah, please, if you would. So describing the method, and then maybe after I can ask you how you organize your groups using the dream interview and how they differ. So maybe first describe the method for everyone here.
I love to do this. This is the basic version, not the more advanced version, because we don't have a lot of time. And I want you to go home with this. There are 3 steps to the dream interview method, and then 2 that follow up. We're going to do the first 3. Description, recapitulation, bridge. Now, this sounds so simple, but it takes discipline. You have to get over needing to be wiser than your dreamer, because the dreamer's wisdom comes from her dream, not from you. You have to get over feeling, I've got to give her something for her money if she's my patient. No, your job to be good at is asking questions. The dreamer, by her own answers, figures it out. All right? So the method is, and I'm going to give you a quick dream example. Description. Describe the major images in the dream as if you're describing them to an interviewer from another planet. And you can do this yourself. You can learn. Oprah said, ever since I interviewed Gail on the dream interview method, I find myself interviewing myself within my dreams. Within the dream. She's a very smart cookie. Let me tell you, boy, does she catch on. Okay, so you get a description of the horse, the car, the mother, the childhood house. When were you there? What was it like? Those kinds of things the person from another planet would ask. And I have all these questions, the basic ones laid out for you. And then you recapitulate that. You feed back to the dreamer. So, dreamer, you said your mother is da 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 da. And in the dream, she's da 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 da. Does this remind you of anything in your life? That's the bridge question. Description, recapitulation, bridge. Remember that. Then just say, is there anything in your life which is like this? So here's a quick, iconic example. My favorite in the whole world. I was giving a lecture. Dreamer said, I had this dream about a cat. The cat was black and gorgeous, and it was sitting on my windowsill. It came into my room. It ran all around, raised a ruckus, and left. So first I asked a little bit of clarification, but in the form of description, right? So, what is a cat like? And she said, a cat is sleek and agile and just wonderful. They're distant and aloof. They love you when they want to and leave you when they want to. And what was the cat in your dream like? Dreams love being specific because that's what gets to the dreamer's heart. And she said, well, he was sleek and black and gorgeous. Okay, and which windowsill was he on? The one to my bedroom. And how did you feel when he left? People need to describe their feelings because they think you know what they're feeling. And I just wrote down a quote from my ex-husband that he gave me, 30 years ago. I saw it in one of my books. And Steve, this wonderful psychiatrist, said, in therapy as well as in dream work, the assumption of common ground between you, yourself, and another person is a great delusion. When beginner psychologist says, I know just how you feel. Well, you don't. And the dreamer wants to be heard. Okay. So I said, how did you feel when the cat left? Oh, I was in tears. Okay. So now I'm going to do a recapitulation inside a bridge. So is there anything in your life that's like a bleak, sleek cat that's gorgeous, agile? I use only her words. Aloof, distant, loves you when it wants to, leaves you when it wants to. Comes into your bedroom, runs all around, raises a ruckus, and then leaves, and you're in tears. She says, oh, that's my boyfriend. Oh my gosh, every boyfriend I've had in my life has been a cat. This was after a couple minutes thought. She said, what I need is a good dog, a faithful, happy one-man dog. She did 10 years of therapy in that session. She watched her patterns. Dreams are so good at this. And she didn't have to tell me her whole life story. She put it all together. All right. Now, just think of what we all would have done had we just been given a dream with a cat, comes into bedroom, leaves, and you try to help the dreamer. A major pitfall is trying to help the dreamer too much. And with my insight, I've read so much about Jung. I've read all his collected works, right? I better tell her that it's a symbol of the feminine principle. And it's maybe, if I were Freudian, I might say it's your mother. We would not have guessed it was her boyfriend if she hadn't told us these details about this cat. And if we did guess, and we told her, well, that sounds like your boyfriend, we would have been stealing the dream from her. The joy of putting that piece in the puzzle puts it together. So description, recapitulation, bridge, describe the cat and everything, major thing in the dream, and ask, recapitulate that, say, is there anything in your life like the cat? And you use the dreamer's words. And then, is there anything in your life like the cat, which is, and you recapitulate again, and leaves you feeling lonely and sad, or whatever she said, in tears when it's over. That's what the dream interview is. And the whole magic of that is we don't need extra interpretations that are handed down. I call them hand-me-down interpretations, or what you think you've heard on the street about cats, or what Freud said, or what your therapist said, or what your guru said, or what your girlfriend said. Stop. Just listen to the dreamer. Just listen to yourself. And it's quick, it's efficient. You can get through a psychotherapy session and do a dream, not have to do one or the other, because it's quick, efficient. And the dreamer has authority over her dream. And she also has the richness of giving you the details.
Well, thank you for describing that to us. And yes, like you said, the dreamer has the authority here, and I see it's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like this. So description, recapitulation, bridge. Excellent.
And it doesn't knock out archetypes and all these fun things we read in books and we want to lay on the dream. But don't do it first. Wait till you really get the dream, because if you start laying on top of this dreamer, the mother archetype, the feminine principle, I mean, we'd just be lost. And she would miss her dream.
It also seems to just really shut the dreamer down, in a way. And so I'd like to talk more about your groups. And so can you tell us how you organize your groups using the dream interview and how that differs from the groups that are using the popular almond method, where the key line is, if it were my dream, it would mean?
I loved Ullman. I have nothing to say against. It's just very different. I loved him because he had come up in a strict Freudian way and really broke out enormously for his generation. And he said to the dreamer, have the dreamer sit in the middle of the room, have everyone around the room listen, clarify what happened when, just that. And then each person gets a chance to say, watching, if this were my dream, it would mean, right? And I've done dream groups with him. So I felt it and it's sweet. But he said to me, Gail, how can you do a dream group and tell people they can lead their own if you don't have someone like you or me to pull it all together? And I said, I don't pull it together. You do it. I don't think they need to, but you have to, because the dreamer's flooded with so many different ideas that, and I think often confused. It's a good group therapy technique to get everyone in the group talk for a dreamer. The dreamer in the middle ought to be out of the room at that day. I think the dreamer needs not to hear anybody's idea about her dream, because especially if it's sort of close, she'll say, well, yeah. Or if it's less critical of herself, oh, I'll take that one. That sounds more spiritual. And I've seen it happen many times. And it's not anybody else's dream. That's the point. It's not at all. I don't want her dream to be a projective technique unless she's never there to hear it. Right? What I do in the group is we have usually about 5 people. We have big hundreds of people groups, and we put people in triads and dyads to do it with each other. Okay. But when it's just a group of 8, let's say my weekly type groups, 8 or 4, everyone in the dreamer tells a dream, everyone listens, takes notes, and they might do some clarification. Excuse me, I didn't get what happened right there. Okay, and everybody gets that straight. And then I appoint the first person to be the interviewer. Okay, Jane, why don't you take it now? And then Jane goes for a while with the dream. Other people can say, hey, I want to ask. And they let the dream interviewer know that. She can ignore that because she's sometimes on a roll. She's leading to something. Sometimes you have to go around the bush to get the dreamer to be less defensive. All right. And she might be doing that beginners wouldn't notice that. And so what usually happens is they let that person go for 10 minutes. And then there's a pausing moment to something obvious. I say, okay, Mike, do you want to take it from here? And we go around the room that way. And then we have a time when the dreamer might say something that was funny or that everybody else thinks they know what the dream means. And they start going, I'm wise. That wise look the therapists get drives me crazy. What does the dreamer do? She stops thinking about herself, her own exploration, and she goes, what do you know that I don't know? Well, she's distracted. The dreamer is almost like a hypnotic client who just focuses in on her experience, and I don't want to disrupt that. So I have different people take turns as being the interviewer. And if somebody really has to come in, or if I want to make a teaching point, because we can't find a good question to ask without leading the witness, we don't want to lead the witness with our questions. That's a key thing you learn. I'll have the dreamer hum. That means close your eyes, plug your ears, and hum. She can record the session, hear what we're saying. But what we're trying to do is formulate a question that won't prejudice an answer, right? But basics, it's one interviewer at a time, and then we stop and we all talk about what happened and what was the technique. Because you see people making mistakes, or I might correct somebody and say, because I can tell it's going to be a leading question. Don't you really think that's about your brother? That's not a question. And so it's different than having everybody projecting their ideas of the dream, which is very meaningful for each individual. They feel like they're all participating. In the beginning of my groups, everyone wants to be the dreamer. Oh, I can't wait till my turn to be the dreamer. Then they can't wait for their turn to be the interviewer, because you learn a whole lot more about the process when you're not doing your own work. Is that pretty clear?
Yes. So thank you for explaining how you support these groups and help people develop the way they're going to be able to effectively carry out the dream interview method with other people. And you also made that distinction.
And I want to say that. Go ahead. We had a delay.
I was just going to say you also made the distinction between more projective methods like the almond method in comparison to your method. I was going to ask you a little more about pitfalls, but I think you had something you wanted to add.
Well, I want to say that some people say I only do dream groups, or I never do dream groups. Mostly we don't have a dream group in our lives. They're hard to organize and keep going. Mostly we work by ourselves or with our practice dreamer, someone you call up once a week to work with your dream. You be my interviewer, I'll be your interviewer, that kind of thing. And so I want people to know you can learn to do this yourself. That's my goal. It's much easier if you have a dream partner, and it's most efficient if you have a dream group, because you see people asking the dreamer questions in a way that distorts the answer. And I do that too. Right? But you can do it in all sorts of ways. I want people to learn that they can do this themselves. And I have my colleague, psychiatrist Loma Flowers. I remember I called her up with a dream once about a German Shepherd. And I said, Loma, I have no idea what could this dream be about. I think it came to the wrong inbox. And she asked me 2 or 3 questions that I had taught her to ask me, right? I taught her the whole method. But when she asked me, I didn't take shortcuts. You know how those of us who work with dreams a lot, we wake up with our dream journal. Oh, I think this is probably about. We miss so much. And we tend to interpret askance, awry. And so she asked me 3 questions and I figured it out and was very helpful. So if you have a friend who's willing to practice with you the dream interview process, that is just wonderful, by phone or by whatever these days.
Yes, to have a dream buddy is really, really special if you can't be part of a active, consistent, group. Well, let's keep going here. Can you tell us what you see to be like major pitfalls in most dream interpretation?
I would say it's that it's interpretation to the psychotheory, not to the dreamer. You surely have seen people who scan every dream for an archetype. And oh boy, somebody wrote a book, so now we have some women archetypes, of better ones, a few more to choose from. It's a straitjacket. It's Bronze Age thinking. I don't like. I went off to Zurich to become a Jungian after college, and I fled. I thought it was a school of indoctrination, much more than a school of psychology. And they just kept interpreting to the dream these wonderful things Jung said, these wonderful archetypes. Jung was very sexist, profound. The only hate mail I've ever gotten in all my writing is when I did a column on Jung's sexism, and I cited him chapter and verse, and people didn't want to hear that. We don't need a daddy. We don't need the wise person. We can use those people, but we don't need them to live our lives, especially women are so prone to that.
Perfect. Thank you for for sharing that piece. That's important, really important to consider. I also want to ask you a little more about the work you do with your students. And can you tell us why you teach your students never to ask, what does this image or this dream mean to you?
Well, we all know, you and I know very well, and most people listening know that that's exactly the answer we need. We need to know what the dream means to the dreamer, right? Mm-hmm. But let's go back to the cat dream. Suppose my first question to this dreamer had been, and so what do cats mean to you? Her mind is going to go immediately to the first interpretation she'd heard. Oh, it's a mother image. It's the feminine principle. It's this, it's that. And she just skips. She goes elsewhere. She interprets to some interpretation. She makes the bridge to an interpretation. And I want you to make a bridge to your life. So to make a good bridge, you have to get specific. And the interviewer, who is from Mars, says, so what are cats like? And how are they different from dogs, for instance? And what's the cat in your dream like? And then the dreamer listens to those words she just said, fed back to her in the recapitulation or in the bridge, because you do that twice. So is there anything in your life like a cat that is sleek and black and long and gorgeous? She said all those things. And loves you when it wants to, is aloof, leaves you when it wants to. Oh, she knew it immediately, but I didn't have that material. It could have been about her mother. I'm not saying it's never about the mother, but not all that often. Unless you're deep in your Jungian analysis, then you tend to dream in the lingo that the school teaches you. But I went to Zurich and I had a series of dreams where I had one where I waited to get my skis. I'm a skier in Switzerland and I was going to live there a year. And I had waited to get my skis till I get to Mecca for skis. And so in my dream, I asked my therapist for skis. I'm ready for my skis now. And he brings back an old, rigid, wooden ski, popular in the 30s and 40s. And I said, oh, no, I mean a more modern ski that's more flexible and it's safer because you can disengage from it, which you couldn't do from a Jungian world. They really get you in there. You have to watch out that you get owned by them and your brain only works that way. And so he said, well, here's another pair. And these were 5-foot black steel ones that had been popular some years previously. What I was hoping for. I said, no, I mean like the really long skis, because those were popular at the time, 72. And they were flexible like the Rossignols, and they they flex and you can get out of them and you can ski, and I can go as fast as the tall people. I'm 5 feet tall, 90 pounds. And so I need skis that give me real speed to keep up with the big folks. And he said, oh, we don't sell those here. And that was about the psychotherapy I was looking for, and the training that had that kind of flexibility. And my dreams just said, no, this isn't the place for you. They don't have what you're looking for. But it spurred me on to develop the dream interview method. And there are lots of things I learned from you. I read the whole collected works. They're wonderful. Not dashing. It's just his dream work was very rigidified according to male-female as he understood it in a very sexist world, where the last woman got to vote in Switzerland 30 years after Jung died.
Wow.
Think of that. So I'm very engaged with empowering the dreamer. And as the Jungians always said, if you're wrong, if you make a mistake, the dreams will come back. Don't worry about it. This is your best inside of your dream right now, and see if your dreams confirm it.
That's an important message. And we have some time, so I'm wondering if you could share a dream and maybe we could kind of play with your interview a little bit.
Well, I wouldn't share one of mine, and there's a good reason for that. And that I'll share a dream.
Okay.
For that reason. I'm really open, and in my groups, I say absolutely anything and everything. I'm very outspoken. I spent 4 years for my book, Sexual Dreams, and I talk about sex, and I have to not get, censored by my radio station. I mean, it's just, that's how it is. But I'm here. There's another reason. Here's sort of an example of it. I was doing a show in Detroit, a TV show that I did every year. So the host knew me and felt comfortable with me. And the guy came into the green room, which is the dressing room, and they're making your makeup. And he said, Gail, I've got a dream. Oh, I got a hot dream I want to tell. I said, I never do the host's dream. I never do that, because you really never know what's going to come out. He said, oh, not this one. This is simple. I've listened. I know. This is a simple dream. Okay, tell it to me. Now, there are about 8 people who work with him every day in the room because they all want to know what their dream means while I'm having my makeup on. Oh, so we had quite a group. And he said, well, I'm on a cruise ship that's docked. And it's really a party, more of a party ship. And I meet this really sexy Marilyn Monroe sort of woman. This is why I wanted to tell the dream. You want people to think of him with Marilyn Monroe. They're very exhibitionistic. Okay, well, Marilyn Monroe, and he went like this. Can you see that? Wait a second. He went like this. That's a Marilyn Monroe dream. And she was very sexy. And then suddenly she jumps off the boat and she wants me to come in to save her because she didn't want to stay at the party. Okay, so I said, so just pretend I come from another planet. Who is Marilyn Monroe and what is she like? Well, she's smarter than people thought, but smart wasn't her strong suit. She's just an incredibly sexy, wonderful woman, and I just couldn't keep my hands off her. And how'd you feel when she jumped into the sea? Well, I was furious because I knew she was faking. I knew she didn't, it was all a ploy to get me off my ship. And I said, so this happens in 2 minutes. Is there anyone in your life who's like Marilyn Monroe, who's just so sexy and maybe not so smart, but you just can't keep your hands off her? And what would you say about someone who jumped off a ship? I forgot I asked him that. Oh, very manipulative. So then I said, and who's very manipulative? I didn't suggest this. And she jumps off the ship and pretends she's drowning, so you will leave the ship. And he said, oh my, no, first thing happened, all the 8 people in the room burst into laughter. And I looked at him and I said, do you want to tell this dream on air? It was about an affair he was having with a Marilyn Monroe type who was faking all kinds of problems so he would leave his marriage, his relationship. And he was going to tell this on the air. You never know where your dream's going to go. Don't pretend you know. Wait till you interview yourself. And if I were to tell you a dream, I could be telling you about a person. Let's say one of my ex-husbands is in the dream. And I might say something not flattering about him. And that would be awful. And I love him besides. my ex-husband's a good man, but or someone I work with at work, it might be that person's really a pain in the neck. You can't go public with that. So there are things you wouldn't expect. And that's why I can't, if we had done one ahead and I saw where the dream was going, then I'd be happy to, but it's not the thrill of seeing. But if people know me, they know whom I work with. They know who my exes are, right? So that's why I don't do it. And I'm so sorry. It's a sweet question. And I would love to do it if we're just in a small group.
Well, Gail, I'm actually glad I asked that because what you just explained really drives the point home. So thank you for that. That's very, very important, a really important point. Well, let me ask you then, as I know we're getting a little closer to our time together, let me ask you about some final thoughts on dreams, maybe some things you can share with our listeners in general or any guidance or just your thoughts, final thoughts on dreams and dreaming.
Well, I think I didn't answer your question, is why I teach my students never ever to ask, what does your dream mean to you? I think I went astray. And the reason is, if you ask, like the cat woman, she'd give the interpretation, right? What I want to know is, what does it mean to her? But she doesn't know yet. How am I going to know? And if I know, I only know in the vaguest of terms. That she had this cat, this dream, and I get her to describe that this guy had this dream about Marilyn Monroe and not Jane Fonda is different. And so I have to ask him to describe. And then when I feed it back in the recapitulation or in the bridge, the dreamer will often say, well, now that you put it that way, and I never change. I try to say exactly what the dreamer said in order, editing slightly so it doesn't take too long. And the dreamer will say, now that you put it that way, this is clearly about my boyfriend. All right. So there's that. And then general advice about dreams. There's so many things you can do with dreams. What I want to do is help the dreamer live a better life. I want your relationships to be better. I don't want to hear you're a highly spiritual person if you don't have good relationships because you're hiding from yourself. You're using social, spiritual ladder climbing to be better than others. That's not going to make you a happy person. So what I want you to do is say, how are your relationships? How fearful are you? How many inhibitions do you have? Let's get rid of all the unnecessary inhibitions in your life and live out loud. Say stuff, do stuff, be allowed to do things. And dreams help to liberate you enormously. So I'm really zeroing in on that because I don't think enough people do. I think they take the easy way out too often. They find an interpretation that's just a hand-me-down or a traditional interpretation. And so I have to fight that battle till the day I die because it's hard. You see a dream saying something you don't want to hear about the boyfriend you think you want to marry? Better hear it now than after you've had children and then you have a super divorce. I've heard many of people's dreams 20 years too late. And they give me a dream from the beginning of their relationships. It was there within weeks. This is going to be a problem for you. And it is the problem 20 years later. So I'm focusing on how is the quality of your life, your relationships, your sense of yourself, your courage to be who you are and discover who you are and try out new things. But having said that, spiritual dreams, hugely sexual dreams, dreams about quitting smoking can change your life. Dreams about, I had my sexual awareness just reprogrammed in a dream. Beautiful things in dreams. You see beauty, even if you never do anything else with your dreams, remember them, because the beauty of them, having seen certain beauty, you'll never forget it and it changes who you are. You've been in another place and are another way. So dreams expand the whole spectrum of your being. You don't have to understand any of your dreams, but if you do, you'll be a much richer person. You'll make better choices. You're going to have more data at your disposal when you try to make a decision about a career move or a relationship.
Well, you are keeping it real, Gail. I love it. I really enjoyed our talk today. And I know our listeners may want to contact you. And would it be correct to say we could go to yoursleepinggenius.com to find you?
Yes. And if you go there, you can also find under programs. Okay. It's a weird place for it to be. Under programs, you can see Delaney's method, and that gives you the overview of the method without buying a book. And you can print out the questions. I call it the cue card. So you have a packet of questions to ask for all the settings and the people and the animals and the feelings in your dream. And that's very helpful to get started.
Yes, very helpful. And for those of us that are, logging our dreams or want to begin that process, do you suggest that writing the narrative of the dream is enough at first, or do you also suggest drawing the dream, doing sketches?
I don't suggest drawing the dream in the beginning unless you feel the impulsion to do it. Then there's something in the drawing. But many people who aren't good at drawing distort their dream by drawing it, and then they get all self-conscious about it, and it starts to become a mess. So do that afterward. There are a lot of things to do afterward. There's no end of what things you can do. But I would say just write down your dream. And if you incubate a dream tonight, if you want to try this out, write down a question right on the upper line right here that says, tonight I would like a dream to help me understand the conflict of my relationship with my daughter. Because there's something you're not getting or you wouldn't still have the problem, right? So write down that question really clearly. Turn out the light, and as you fall asleep, repeat it over and over exactly as you wrote it, like a mantra. I want a dream to help me understand my relationship with my daughter, however you put it. And then when you wake up in the morning, you may or may not have a dream. You may have just an idea. But if you have a dream, no matter how tiny, no matter how fragmented, just write it down. And then after breakfast, come back to your dream and interview yourself. Almost every time when people incubate a dream, they get a dream on the topic. It's very easy to do. And it's so convincing that even your nightmares, you might have a nightmare. I want a dream to understand my conflicts with my father. That might be a heavy one. And you might get a scary dream. Or I want a dream to help me stop smoking. That can also be a scary dream. Be good. Your nightmares are your best friends. They're reality. Reality is your best friend. Write it down and then interview yourself later in the day, just like the interviewer from another planet. Who is your father, George, and what is he like? What are the first things you say? And you'd be amazed how much you'll get out of that first time out. But keep it simple in the beginning, and then there are more things that you can follow through with later.
Well, that's wonderful advice. And I'm sure you would agree that, like you said, write down everything, because some people say, oh, that was just a small snippet or mundane. I believe you'd agree that we don't want to keep that. We want to put everything in the book.
I call that the treacherous fragment trap. Boy, you can do something with just the tail of the tiger. You'd be amazed. Loma and I had a group of 300 people we were teaching how to do this method, and it depends on showing you real life in vivo how it happens. And the woman had only one person gave up with a dream. They were all therapists, afraid not to look cool, and the only thing she had in her dream was an avocado. No, not avocado. Oh, the prickly green things.
Was it a prickly pear?
No, but that'll do. No, the ones you pull off each leaf, you eat them like this.
Artichoke.
All right. An artichoke. That's all she had. No action, no setting, no nothing. So we asked her what's an artichoke and what it's like. And she described how, well, it's an awful lot of work and they're prickly and you can choke on the middle of it. But when you finally get to the bottom of it, to that sweet, it's so worth the trouble. So we've recapitulated, then we bridged. Is there anything in your life like an artichoke that is blah, 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 blah? My sister, and she burst into tears because her dream decided that it was worth the trouble. Her sister is now and always will be an artichoke. So even the fragment, just take it and see if you get something.
So everything is valuable. Put it all in the dream journal.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Very good. Thanks again for being here today, Gail. And we can find you at yoursleepinggenius.com. It was so nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Goodbye, everybody.